All right, all right, all right. Let's simmer down. Let's simmer down here. So let me see if we're all good here. Hey, welcome to Critical Q&A number 523. In this end of November, in the year of our Lord 2025. Hey, everybody. No intro music. You are getting the applause intro today. Thought I would try that out because I have no ego of any kind. Anyway, hey everybody, let's flip over to the host and chat here, and let's go ahead and get the Q&A set up here. Please, and make sure I get the S in it this week. Please put your questions here. All right, start that Q&A. All right, so let's go ahead and slide that over there so I can see your questions as they come in. And we are in a pretty good mood today. As I start this Q&A today, I have some things to share with you guys that are fun and interesting. And I have just been spending, I love getting on a roll where my ADHD starts being a benefit when it comes to doing some deep dive research and just spending whole days hyper focused on some topic or issue and really diving into it to the degree that I need to, so that I can get my wits around it and sort of conceptually fit it in with other things that I've been studying over the last many years. And one of the things that I have really been hung up on. Oh, thank you, Sam Slade, for your super chat. I really appreciate that. Really love the super chats, guys. So I encourage you to please keep throwing them my way. They really do make a difference in my life. Believe it or not, as does even the $1 a month on Patreon. It really helps. So thank you for your support. So I got to deep dive in the last few weeks on a few different topics, which I've talked to you guys a little bit about regarding maybe empathy and empaths versus apaths, sociopaths, that whole model, and how I had misunderstood that and wanted to correct that with you guys. And I've also been diving into lots and lots of other stuff as I'm still in the editing phase of my second book that's being published hopefully this year. I can make that happen. And so far, all lights are green to make that happen, but I got to get the editing back and compiled and all that. So while that process has been going on, I've had a little bit of time on my hands to dive into some things, and so you guys get to hear about that here on the show. And empathy was one of those things, right? And it connects in with lots of other things, because when I dive into this stuff, I will tend to connect dots to cultural, social things, as well as personal psychology, or fit it into the recovery side of things. But also my interests are broadening more to general psychological principles too, not just the abnormal pathological stuff that we see with cults all the time, or with cult recovery or coercion. Because if you hyper focus on that too much, you can start thinking that's all psychology, and I've definitely fallen into that little rabbit hole a few times, and or tiger pit, I should say, and gotten staked a few times making mistakes like that, right? Thinking that everybody's pathological and stuff. No, they're not. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about this week, just to start off the show, get this out there while you guys throw your questions my way. We're going to tackle our little critical thinking cards. Before I even get into this monologue, just because we would usually kind of talk about, Benson around this time, Mel and I are definitely sort of officially trying to sort of move on through the grief stage of this, sort of stages of experiencing the loss of our little pet. And not that he died. We don't know what happened to him. He just ran off, and we haven't seen him. And it's been, almost 2 months now. And so we're just kind of thinking about our future and where, what we might do in terms of future pets. But we're only up to the conceptual stage on that, right? As far as all that goes, it's not any kind of, oh yeah, we want to, go rush out and get one. We're not even remotely there yet. So anyway, that's kind of where that whole thing stands. And then, yeah, anyway, I wanted to give you that. And then I told you about the book. Okay, and we'll do the critical thinking cards in a little bit, but I wanted to go over, and I wanted to plug, you can tell today I am unmedicated. So I also wanted to plug the podcast this week with Jennie Gage. I did another interview with her, and we dived into MAGA Christians. And there was something I wanted to say about this, because a couple of the flavor of a few of the comments I'm getting already on that were critical were interesting to me, because they seemed to miss the point of what I was trying to do with that podcast. So let me clarify. And maybe for those of you watching this who saw or heard the podcast and might have wondered about this or thought about this, maybe it'll address it a little bit. But Jennie Gage, like me, is somebody who just recently, like I had been when I started my channel, is somebody who just recently came out of a lifetime of cult indoctrination and wildly different Christian evangelical beliefs, Mormon beliefs, than what, a lot of people think of as mainstream Christianity. There's a lot of different flavors of it out there, like lots and lots. And it really, really surprises me, even to this day, on my channel of all places, when people come and say that they don't really get what Christianity's about. And you're like, what are you talking about? There's about 1,000 different flavors of it. And Jennie, was describing what she had experienced in her cult life and upbringing. So of course how she's describing Christianity and her ideas about it when she was in the cult are not going to generally agree with yours. And so I see these comments, she doesn't really understand, Christianity. I'm like, what? No, she's actually talking from, what she used to believe. And I kept asking her about it so I could get that out of her, is what was it that MAGA Christians believe that drives them to this idea that Christ shouldn't be in Christianity. It really blows me away, So anyway, I just wanted to comment on that part of it, because I feel context is important in watching or listening to my podcasts. So, and if that doesn't connect with some of the criticisms or whatever, then fine. We can take that on more granularly. But I did think that was interesting to watch some of the feedback on it. So I wanted to respond to that. All right. So this certainty thing actually springs from that podcast and from some thinking and talking. And of course, you and I on this show have talked about certainty an awful lot. But one of the things that I've noticed or said realized really from putting my REM model together, my model of human behavior focused around rationalization and emotion and morality, that 3-layer model is quite the thing for me. It really helps me clarify and understand people. And certainty, I realized in putting that model together, is not the product of knowledge or knowing things. Certainty is the product of the moral layer and morality and emotional investment. And I think a lot of you understand that right away when I say that, but it surprises some people when I say that. They have to stop and chew on that for a minute. Wait a minute, what? Because they think that certainty is a product of knowingness or knowledge or having knowledge, and it's not, right? You can be absolutely 100% certain of something that you know nothing about. And so, when I point that out, people immediately, oh yeah, right, I get it right away. So I don't need to do a big, huge monologue on it. But I wanted to sort of throw that out there because I think it's important to understand what certainty is, so that when you feel certain, you might step back and question that because it might not be a really great place to be. The interesting thing about it that I wanted to share with you, again, not going to a big long thing about it, but I thought that this point might hit home real easily and communicate the core of where I'm trying to go with it. Your brain has a rule. What you see is all there is. What you see is all there is. According to your brain, that's how life works. If you can easily construct a simple, coherent story from the information you have, your brain gives you the feeling of confidence. Oh, look, I've got this number of facts. I can connect these dots. Doink, doink, doink. Right? Joe hit Bill, hit Mary, and there it is, right? Like, you see this evidence, and this is what happened, and boom, 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 and there it is. And none of that happened. But you think that's what happened because of the ease with which your brain can create that story. And if it all makes sense, boom. Of course that's what happened, right? This is cops, this is Detective 101, right? This is like how you do it. And but here's the corollary. Here's the part here's the knife in the back for you on this particular problem, right? Is this works great for us, and we evolve to be this way because most of the time it works for us, except when it doesn't. And when it doesn't, it can not work in spectacularly tragic ways. Because here's the knife in the back on this is the less you know, the easier the story. Right? If you only know 1, 2, 3 things about something, it's easy to put a story together that fit those 1, 2, or 3 things. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, boom, your brain's done, right? And you've now got your answer. This is what first impressions is. This whole thing. It all ties in. Because there's very few facts to mess up the plot, right? And the brain's first thought or way of thinking is not, okay, hold on, let me question myself here. Let me be skeptical about this narrative or this story that I'm now telling myself. The brain's tuned to go, no, this is exactly the right story, right? Of course it is. And you're so brilliant for figuring it out so quickly. What a genius you must be. This is the ChatGPT brain telling you how awesome you are, right? But this is where certainty comes from. This whole little mechanism, you could say, or this way that the brain works, right? And in fact, imagine trying to judge a mystery. If the detective is given just 3 clues, they can spin a clear, simple tale immediately. If they are given 300 conflicting clues, the true answer might be there, but they will feel confused and uncertain. The feeling of certainty is highest when the story is simplest, regardless of how much vital evidence is actually missing. And that's all I want to give you today on that, right? I don't want to overload you with stuff. There's more to know about this. But just that bit, I think, will help you to check yourself before you wreck yourself, right, with critical thinking. And this is where the critical thinking comes in, because if the point of discipline that I'm always talking about with critical thinking is recognizing those moments of your brain giving you the ChatGPT reassurance that you're so smart and you're so awesome because you figured out this answer so quickly. It's at that moment that a good critical thinker will go, good, now, what facts or what circumstances might disprove what I just thought or what I just came up with? And if you can discipline yourself right there at that moment to ask yourself that question, congratulations, you have graduated to becoming a good critical thinker, because that is really where it's all at, is that moment where you can override that self-serving feeling of certainty and challenge yourself. And the more you do that, the better the chances are that you will come up with more objectively correct answers or solutions to your problems. Okay, your fallacy is ambiguity. Okay, so the card for this week is from our critical thinking deck is ambiguity. Using double meanings or ambiguities of language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. This is a logical fallacy. When the judge asked the defendant why he hadn't paid his parking fines, he said that he shouldn't have to pay them because the sign said, quote, "Fine for parking here." So he naturally presumed that it would be fine to park there. I love that card. Okay, so there you go with some critical thinking. shenanigans to start the show. Cool. I do not have a pro contact for interview requests. People just email me, or I email them. I don't have anybody else that I work with to set things up for me or anything. Everything I've done all these years has just been me operating myself. Okay, so now let's get to your questions. We do not have any questions from the email line this week in the queue, so it's just going to be you and me and whatever questions you're throwing in the queue. I'm going to start at the top, and let's have a chat, and let's see where we go. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, by the way. We did. I totally skipped on all of that, but we had a wonderful, wonderful family Thanksgiving. In fact, this year actually felt a little bit, let me turn that off for just a second, actually felt a little bit like, I've spent all these years, I didn't even, anyway, it felt very familial. I got to cook the Thanksgiving turkey and everything for everybody, for the family this year. Mel's family came over and we had Thanksgiving, and it was really, really fun and nice. And I love cooking the good stuff, the turkey and the potatoes and all the main stuff. So we had and people brought stuff, and it was fun. So that was our Thanksgiving. I hope you guys had a nice family Thanksgiving too. All right, let's answer your questions. Matador, hey Chris, I see the Church of Scientology Christmas catalog is out. Ever thought of ordering the perfect Christmas gift for your mother-in-law? I have. I should buy my mother-in-law an e-meter. I'm sure she would enjoy that quite a bit. Sure she wouldn't know what to do with it. You guys are funny. I'm just going to move along. Sam Slade. Okay, here we go. You made an offhand comment with Tony this week that you thought Clearwater would be the last redoubt of Scientology, to paraphrase. Yes, I did say that, i.e. the last stronghold. Could you elaborate on this? Yeah, absolutely, Sam. Clearwater is L. Ron Hubbard's targeted, stated goal for geographical location for Scientology to have its headquarters. L. Ron Hubbard chose that location. However he went about doing that, he did it. And he did that in the mid-1970s when he brought the Sea Org back to land. They had been roaming around off the coast of Europe, Portugal, Greece, Spain, for years, sailing around off the North Africa, kind of getting into various degrees of trouble and shenanigans with governments. And then they came across the Atlantic and settled in Clearwater. And Hubbard said, okay, this is where we're going to land. And he made a project, written program of targets and orders to accomplish to take over Clearwater. Hubbard saw it as this sort of, good location for whatever reason, and sleepy retirement community maybe. I don't know what was in his mind that he thought that they could move in and start buying up property and take the place over, but that clearly was his goal. He had already failed in similar efforts in the UK, in Greece, in South Africa, Zimbabwe specifically, right, Rhodesia, at the time. And so this was another attempt at, okay, geographical centralized location for Scientology to headquarter. Project Normandy was the written program written to do this, and people might think that's ancient history, that Hubbard wrote that back in the 70s, and so Scientology has since moved on from that and is involved in something else. But I'm here to tell you they're not. They haven't moved on from that at all. David Miscavige still believes in and is trying to forward L. Ron Hubbard's intention as he sees it, and it's a pretty twisted up view of Hubbard's vision, but it's he's doing what he can. Right? if we grant Miscavige a little bit of benefit of the doubt, right? That maybe he's still trying to do what what Hubbard wanted. So over the last decade or so, since I have left Scientology in 2012, 2013, we have seen, here's my book. Somebody mentioned it in the comments. I have to, I put the stand somewhere else, so I don't have it on my little stand here. So, over the last 12 years, Miscavige has started calling for celebrities and VIPs to move to Clearwater and actually kind of consolidating forces there. Also in that time, he has combined or downsized ASHO, the American Saint Hill organization, and the Los Angeles Church of Scientology. And he's converted the Los Angeles Church to a Sea Org church. It's a Sea Org run operation. It's not a Class 5 staffed organization anymore. That's a huge, massive model change for the entire PAC base and Los Angeles, because it indicates that there has been so much shrinkage in that geographical region for Scientology, which was historically speaking the most money-making and most high-volume concentration of Scientologists was Los Angeles. That's downsized over the last 12 years. And so he combined ASHO and Day and Foundation into one American Saint Hill organization, and he combined the LA Day and LA Foundation organizations into one organization and said and made it only Sea Org members. The Saint Hill Special Briefing Course no longer is delivered at all and hasn't been for over 20 years. This is like basically removing an entire chunk of the grade chart of Hubbard's bridge to total freedom. He just literally took an entire pillar out of it, right? It's a monumental change to L. Ron Hubbard's intent. So those are the kind of things I think about when I think about the changes that Miscavige has made, and yet he still operates on this idea that Clearwater is going to be this centralized headquarter place for Scientology, and he's moved all significant operations there, and he's encouraged the celebrities and the VIPs to move there. So we see, and I'm contrasting this with the LA situation to show how there's instead of Scientology moving out in concentric circles of expansion, they are now shrinking in on themselves. The expansion curve, or the direction has changed, and they are shrinking. And we all know that they've been shrinking, but they're shrinking to Clearwater. That is the center of the Scientology universe, and will be from here on out. There is no way, there's no real conceivable way for Miscavige to change that at this point. The massive amounts of real estate investment, personnel investment, political investment in Florida, in Pinellas County, in Clearwater City, is sort of from Scientology's perspective, it's sunk cost, right? I mean, they have invested everything in making Clearwater work. So picking up stakes and going somewhere else would be a massive, years-long logistical operation for David Miscavige and Scientology overall. Everything has been directed in the exact opposite direction of pounding in those stakes and building a concrete foundation for expansion. But in the process of doing all of this, Miscavige has mismanaged Scientology to such a degree that it's a shrinking operation, which is now shrinking the Clearwater, right? There's my big, long explanation of that. But that's kind of the situation there. I couldn't speak to reasons, too much on that. I know I kind of passed over that a bit because I don't know. I don't know why it was that Miscavige or Hubbard chose Clearwater in the first place. But for whatever reason he did, and they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on this. Every opportunity they had to change their ways, shift their policies, get along better with the environment around them, play nice. They just, no, we're not going to do that. They've chosen the path of maximum resistance and maximum inconvenience for the city every single time, because Scientology is not about playing nice. Scientology is about steamrolling people, into compliance. And that's what they're trying to do there. Hope that all is a good answer. All right. OBG Foster. On a popular fan fiction site, there is only one story based on Battlefield Earth, and it's in Russian. Why do you think that is? It's not because there isn't the same amount of awful fan fiction potential in Battlefield Earth. It's because it's just not a very popular book. Because it's not that good. Oh, you're welcome, Sam. Like I said, I hope that was a good enough answer. And if you have any question about any other aspect of any of that stuff that I'm talking about, if I'm not going into enough detail about anything, or missed some important aspect of anything that I'm ever answering here, you guys can please feel free to ask me more about it. I'm happy to clarify stuff. As far as OBG Foster goes, I just don't think it's a very popular story. Russian is interesting to me. That's funny that it's a fanfic is in Russian. That's interesting, actually. That's an interesting factoid, that there really isn't much in terms of fan fiction of Hubbard. Says a little bit about the efforts of author services. I mean, what other author, other than maybe say, the marketing, sort of engine behind somebody like Stephen King, right? Or some of the, the high-powered, name brand authors out there, James Patterson, these kind of guys. Other than those guys, right? And the kind of PR engines that exist to service them, you have L. Ron Hubbard has had a dedicated organization called Author Services, Inc., ASI, that has been his literary agent since he's died, since 1986, and probably earlier. And their sole task is to popularize L. Ron Hubbard's fiction. They have one job. Really, that's it. That's their one mandate. Popularize L. Ron Hubbard's fiction. And this is the best they can do. I guess these guys kind of suck at their job. Okay. Ex-Scion. I enjoyed the Speaking in Cults podcast you posted yesterday with Jennie Gage. Thank you. She's had quite a journey in her life so far, hasn't she? Oh, my God. Jennie Gage is actually quite something for the journey she's been on. I mean, ex-Mormon, ex-MAGA, coming out of that evangelical MAGA Christian world, physically abused, sexually assaulted by her husband for years and years. I mean, it's just one of those like awful, awful stories that is repeated probably 1 million times over here in the United States. There are 1 million Jennie Gages out there whose stories aren't being told because even the women out there in those positions aren't even really fully aware of the abusive, coercive situation that they're right smack in the middle of, just like I was in Scientology and didn't realize all those years that I was smack dab in the middle of this extremely abusive situation, and I didn't have to be. There was no reason for me to stay there at all, but I was so wrapped up in my prison of belief, just like Jennie was in her world. The prison bars come from our attachment issues. That was the other thing I was going to tell you guys a little bit about at the beginning of the show was, I've been deep diving this week on attachment theory, which is something I haven't really dived super, super deep on to understand the generalized psychology of it. But now that I have been doing so, things like abusive households and the adult behaviors of people toward abusive personalities, or conflict and how people deal with conflict and how that speaks to how they were raised and how they were cared for or weren't cared for, is absolutely stunning in its implications. Civilization wide, when you see the long-term consequences of bad parenting through bad attachment styles and what that does to people, it's horrifying, because it's so easy to fix if people would just kind of get their wits around it. But you got to understand it first, and I say all this because I see so much in Jennie's story of the generational trauma that's perpetuated, family after family after family through these abusive practices and teachings that have been foisted off on MAGA Christians here in the United States for decades now by the likes of this guy James Dobson, right? This psychologist turned preaching child abuser, sort of preached dogmatic child abuse as traditional Christian parenting, and got away with it, right? And infused the whole culture with this. There's a podcast coming to you guys in a few weeks all about this, where I interviewed a couple women who wrote a book about it, and Jennie Gage was the product of this exact environment. There's a whole circle you can close of logic with this when you get the whole picture of how this culture perpetuates itself, this MAGA Christian culture, which is kind of backwards world when it comes to Christian faith. It's very Old Testament disguised as, modern Christianity. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting stuff. And this journey that I'm describing, this situation, this world that I'm describing, that is her world, the one she came out of. So she's, I think she's, quite heroic for having survived all that, recognizing what she was in the middle of, stepping out of it, and then taking the time to find out what it's all about and try to help other people out of that. I mean, that's my journey. I mean, I empathize with her a lot on that, just purely at that level, and want to help her in her journey as a result of that. Just like I want to help, all the YouTubers in the ex-cult space moving forward with this stuff. It's important work. So yeah, I hope y'all check out our channel. All right. Xen, with the perception of being in a dangerous environment, do you think that people seek comfort and camaraderie in political groups? Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Ideology is a very basic group-based form of empathy, sure, of community, of fulfilling emotional needs, right, for tribal support. Absolutely. If you're involved in a group that is active in determining the very framework by which you live, the rituals by which you enact and follow to have tribal conformity and congruity and transfer of power and movement through time of functional government support and structure for common good, right? Fire departments and police forces and post offices and the structures of society are built around, this sense of community and shared values and shared goals. And ideology are the rituals and the belief sets that we assign to make those structures make sense to us, and the goals and planning of the structures moving forward in time, right? In other words, we not only want the post office to continue to be there, but we want it to operate on certain principles that we agree with, either morally or socially or psychologically, so that we all feel that we're on the same page with each other. In other words, we want a system in place that's predictable, that is dependable, that's reliable, that and is serving the common good as we see it. And we're not all ever. There is no world where we all agree. Ever. On anything. It is not in our nature to do that. And if you've been watching Vince Gilligan's Pluribus, you might, you start getting this vision of a hive mind, humanity, and it's a very, very different thing from the individuality that we have. So within the framework of actual human beings and the way we really work, we don't ever all agree on anything. Yet we feel and need community and mutual support to get along and live in the world. We cannot, not one of us can survive wholly and completely alone unless we're, stuck on some desert island somewhere. And then we are pretty fucking miserable, right? And it's the kind of existence that you really wouldn't even want to have. because that sense of community and mutual support is so built into us and so strong within us that lacking it can actually make a person lose their ability to operate or function. So community is super important. And what more fundamental or basic kinds of community can you have than political groups? Because those are the groups that, like I said, are sort of determining the anatomy of the society in which you live. Right? Is it authoritarian, or is it more liberal minded and progressive and free thinking? Is power distributed evenly, or is power distributed grossly unevenly? All at the top, or too much at the bottom, not enough at the top. So the people in charge really can't get anything done. We're constantly struggling with proper balances of these things, and the comfort and camaraderie, as you say here, right, of political groups is it allows people to find other people who think kind of along the same lines they do. In other words, their template of how the world is supposed to look, their moral layout, is very similar with these other people. And this is one of the reasons why when you're talking ideology and politics, people fall back into moral language so quickly, because their politics or their ideas of ideology are intimately tied in with their own ideas of right and wrong and how the world is supposed to look, It all fits in together. So these are very, very closely aligned things: politics, political groups, and our feelings of community. They're literally inextricably connected. They can't be separated. Politics is that set of rituals and beliefs by which we form community. It's a little inextricably tied together. And when you understand it or look at it that way, then it starts making a lot more sense. One, why there's so much contention around it, but two, why there is so much misunderstanding to it that itself, those misunderstandings, cause so much conflict. So I think there's a lot to know there. I would be, OBG Foster didn't put this in the comments, but just because you're putting this, since it refers back to that earlier question, I don't think you would ever find Scientologists writing fanfic. That's a really good point. I should have thought of that. That's a great additional point to that answer, is that no, Scientologists would not write fanfic off of L. Ron Hubbard's stuff. I don't think they would do that. I think it would be considered sacrilegious. I do. I think the church, and if they didn't think it, the church would. Church would have a real problem with somebody rewriting Hubbard. Oh, I hadn't even thought about that angle. That's a good one, OBG Foster. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Vernon asks, Chris, do you think the U.S. will invade Venezuela? It certainly appears that way from the headlines that I'm reading, but I have not done any kind of real study of the issue, so I can't sit here and say one way or the other a definitive yes or no. I can say that that the mind of Donald Trump and the people around him would certainly crave a massive distraction right now, to divert attention away from the crises and controversies that just won't stop blasting nuclear explosions out of this administration. We're not even 1 year into this administration. It's a goddamn fucking disaster. And, public trust is at an all-time low. Public approval of this administration is in the negative digits. I mean, it's so bad right now here in America, and Americans are just outraged. We are absolutely beside ourselves with this nonsense. I can speak for a good chunk of the American population when I say stuff like that, because I've seen opinion polls and work on this. People don't want this. Right? What Donald Trump is doing is grossly unpopular. I mean, it's just not wanted. And unfortunately, our corporate media is so paid for that you don't get the straight story on that. So as far as the Venezuela thing goes, Trump is stupid enough and sort of demented enough at this point that he's lashing out at anything that comes his way. I mean, he's now, full-blown Bolsonaro mode. I mean, just reporters are idiots and stupid, and you're a stupid person for asking me that. I mean, the man is literally acting like a 3-year-old on the international stage. It's humiliating and embarrassing beyond words to be an American right now under this authoritarian, just evil nonsense. So chances are really, really good that plans are afoot. We already know the plans are afoot. Chances are very, very high that Donald Trump is going to give the go, and the U.S. military is going to have to, is going to be forced to invade fucking Venezuela. And, I don't know what to say about that, except I'm disgusted by everything that this administration is doing to try to deflect attention away from itself, its own crimes, and bolster the just bottomless greed that cannot ever be satisfied, that exists not only at the bottom of Trump's little tiny soul, but the upper class in our systems. We've we've created a system that incentivizes psychopathy to rise. And so you have an over distribution of sociopathic and psychopathic behavior at the upper levels of our society. And this is Western nations worldwide. We already had that problem in a lot of Eastern nations too, through other reasons, right? It's not the only capitalism isn't the only thing that has incentivized, sociopathic behavior at the top. But our particular brand of sociopathy, is a greed-based one. And so that also, I have to bring all that up because it feeds into the Venezuelan picture as well, right? It's not just about distraction from the press. Donald Trump doesn't consider bad press to be a bad thing. He considers no press coverage to be the bad thing, right? If they're not talking about him at all, that's what's bad. So he's not really super into the distractions thing so much as he is into enriching himself and his loyalist followers. So that's kind of how I dumb that whole situation down to a couple pretty simple factors, which are probably an oversimplified explanation, but that's how I see things. So that's how I'm going to answer the question. Okay. There are OBG Foster. There is no sense in asking sensible questions about the behavior of people like Donald Trump. There is no sense there to be mind. That's not what motivates that mind, right? All right, X-Cyan, did you pick out random questions from the Alice in Wonderland book, or then the usual do fish swim or do birds fly for TR1? Did you practice TR2 on your parents to stop them from talking? Well, do birds fly or do fish swim is the question for TR3. TR1 is random phrases from statements, right? Quotations. You have to take the quotes out of Alice in Wonderland. You don't read descriptive passages, you read quotes. And they can be questions or statements, doesn't differentiate. As long as they are quoted statements from the book, that's what you read for TR1. TR3 is repetitive question, and that's where you ask, do fish swim or do birds fly? And most of the time I asked, do birds fly? I only rarely used do fish swim. Did I practice TR2? TR2 is acknowledgments, where you respond to somebody's communication to you with the intention of shutting down or stopping the communication, which is not necessarily good or bad. It just, it depends on how you use it, right? So, I say, I ask you, how are you? And you say, fine. And I say, good. That is the acknowledgement. You saying fine is an answer to my question. It's not an acknowledgement. My acknowledgement to your answer is the TR to, right? The acknowledgement. So, and when I say that, fine, or you say fine, and I say thank you, the thank you stops the communication. It shuts it down, right? We're done with that question of how are you? We're not going to talk about that anymore. And the acknowledgement is the thing that serves functionally to shut that down. So you can use acknowledgements to shut people up pretty easily in the world, and Scientologists often do that. Yes, I have used that with my parents many times. Yes, of course I have. Lots of times. All right. Yeah, I'm sure you guys can imagine all the ways. Okay, Sam Slade asks here, 1, given your training, what do you think of psychoanalysis, Freudian or otherwise? And 2, do Scientologists ever homeschool? 3, did you hear of the Eli Perkins case when you were in, or Ellie Perkins case? Okay. Okay, I have a limited understanding of the full dynamics of psychoanalysis and Freudian or otherwise, because I'm not a trained therapist, as I've told you guys many times. And I say that only to reinforce that I'm not a trained therapist, not to correct you. It's a perfectly good question, Sam. Within my understanding of psychoanalysis, it depends a great deal on the curiosity, intuitiveness, empathy, and professionalism of the practitioner as to what kind of results they're going to get. It's not a job that you can do half-mindedly. It's not a job that you can sort of pay attention to, right? It's a job that you really have to focus on the person in front of you, and you have to be willing to hear what they're saying, not what you think they're saying. But at the same time, you have to analyze what they are saying and notice repeating patterns in their descriptions and their behavior and their responses to things, because that gives you insight into how they're approaching the world and how they're perceiving the world. And you can find out a great many things about people by just paying attention to the words they use and the language, the mannerisms. Of course, body language, filters into that to one degree or another. But these are not big things, but they're all totaling into the big thing. And so psychoanalysis is like this sort of talk therapy where you're really not trying to do a lot of structured treatment modalities. You're not doing emotion-based therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy or something. Psychoanalysis is a much looser form of therapy with varying theories as to different approaches. There's Freudian, Jungian, every other brand of this stuff. There's lots and lots and lots of varying approaches that people take. But I think the qualities I laid out are important no matter what style you're using or approach you're taking. If you can't hear the person in front of you, and if you're not really, really curious about them as an individual, then I think you're going to fail. And how do you imbue that in someone? How do you make sure when you're training someone as a psychoanalyst that they're bringing all of that to the table? You do your best, but not everybody who enters into the healing professions is necessarily bringing all of that. They want more. They bring simple, rote understanding, or they don't want to work that hard, or whatever, right? And so, I think that's where your results may vary in getting psychoanalysis. Okay, do Scientologists ever homeschool? Yes, there are Scientologists who do that. There's no program for it. There's no set of books for it like there is in the, Institute of Basic Life Principles or something, right, under Gothard's system. He's got a whole set of 70, I think, wisdom books, right, to give to the kids. They don't have anything like that in Scientology. They've got the children's courses that they have, like the children's grammar course or the children's communications course. And I understand right now they are piloting a bunch of new services for kids so as to cater more to that second gen group because they really want to, get a good hold on those kids because they're losing way, way, way too many of them. And their recruitment lines are sort of shutting down in Scientology, right? So there probably will be some focus on homeschooling type materials, maybe. Like there could be. That could be an approach that Miscavige would take. I could see him doing that. Yeah, I could say that kind of thing. Yeah. And did you hear of the Ellie Perkins case when you were in? You're catching me out right now because I'm sitting here right now, and I don't know what the Ellie Perkins case is. Glass artist and Scientologist lived in Western New York State. Oh, she was at Buffalo. Okay. Devoted member of the church for over 30 years, achieved clear in the 70s, participated in events, sold her wares. Oh, this one. Yeah. Jeremy murdered her. Oh, this one. Right. Okay, got it. That case. Sorry, I just didn't connect the name right away. Yeah, that was a tragic one. And did I hear of it when I was in? No, of course I didn't. No, there was no mention of any of that when I was in Scientology. We never heard word one about Lisa McPherson, Ellie Perkins, Whitney Mills right now. No one in Scientology is hearing anything about any of those cases at all. Nothing. Radio fucking silence. And if they do hear or ask a question of someone about it and it gets to OSA, yeah, it's going to be ethics interviews and who have you been talking to and where'd you see that and what have you been looking at, and it's going to be shut the hell up. Treatment is what they would get for that very, very quickly. They do not talk about that stuff inside the church. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know anything about Lisa McPherson. I mean, nothing until I got out. Nothing. I wouldn't have been able to tell you, you could put a gun to my head, I wouldn't have been able to tell you anything about Lisa McPherson or Paulette Cooper or Ellie Perkins or, God, I don't even remember the name, the kid in the chain locker. The person who died on the Apollo, whose father had to go get her. I don't remember the name of that tragic case. There were so many cover-ups, and we didn't know anything. I mean, nothing about the whole 77, the raids. I didn't know where gold was located. I didn't know what David Miscavige's itinerary was. I mean, I didn't know anything, nothing. Just totally kept in the dark. Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know, so you don't even know what questions to ask when you're in. You know what I mean? It's not like you're willfully ignorant. You literally just aren't being told. The information control is impressive when you think about it. I mean, it really is. I just had no idea. Okay, anyway, going on and on there. But it was just kind of hitting me all over. I was just like, damn, yeah, we really were in the dark on so much. Okay. Ex-Scion, does Paula White, oh God, I hate this woman, the White House spiritual advisor, have reach into the Christo-fascist community, or is hers more of a symbolic role? Here's what I know about Paula White, and this is just this sort of grating piece of thing that I know that it just bothers me. But that's because I love the music group Journey, right? And Paula White is married to the keyboardist from Journey, a guy who literally wrote the song Faithfully, right? And so many other songs that I just absolutely love. I mean, he's a really, really talented artist. And he's a Christo-fascist asshole. And he's married to Paula White, who is one of the most horrible people I can imagine in this world. I mean, she's just an awful, awful person. That's what I know about her. That's everything I know about her. I don't know anything about her connections to the community beyond, that she is a the epitome of what Jennie and I were talking about yesterday in our podcast. You know, that's who Paula White is. I don't know enough about her personally. I can only slot her into that world. And the quotes and information I've seen from her personally are so grossly offensive to my entire worldview that I can't find anything that I could call common ground when it comes to someone like her. I simply don't have it. I don't. I mean, it amazes me we both speak the same language because I have so very little in common with her as a human being. So I'm kind of repulsed and repelled by her, and I struggle when I run into people like that to want to know anything more about them because they literally offensively repel me from my idea of what a good person is, and she's so obviously not any of those things that I got to keep her at arm's length, if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's where I go with people like her. All right, Angry Chode. Hey, man, considering Scientology's shrinkage, will they start selling real estate and closing orgs outside of Clearwater? Eventually they will. Yes, absolutely, but probably not in the next few years. It's probably going to take a while. Kind of like the missions. The mission networks was a slow grind. It took decades for it to, you know, they did the big mission disaster in Scientology in the late 70s, early 80s. We all know about this. And they raked the mission holders over the coals and raided their bank accounts and literally just raped these places, right? Gangbang, sec check the mission holders. I mean, it was some of the most abusive group behavior that the Church of Scientology has ever engaged in, was that concentrated activity of them dissolving their own expansion network, their own inflow lines. Scientology, at L. Ron Hubbard's orders and at David Miscavige's orders, they went in and they annihilated them. The mission network never really rebuilt, but it still operates 30, 40, 50 years later on pure inertia. And so you see people opening and then closing missions, opening and closing. They pop up in people's living rooms or in some rental place that somebody can afford for a little while. They take out a small business loan, get the package, the mission starter package, rent a place, and think they're going to make a go of it, and they're going to open up Montana to Scientology, right? Or they're going to open up, you know, Salem, Oregon to Scientology, and surprise, no one fucking wants it, right? And the mission collapses or never really gets anywhere and closes. And that's been the story of the mission network ever since Miscavige and Hubbard destroyed it. It still ostensibly is there. You see it on paper. You see addresses. You see photographs from time to time of missions popping up. But for all intents and purposes, it might as well not exist. The amount of energy and money and time it takes to open missions and popularize missions and market them and then watch them close is a net negative. Eventually, that will be the orgs too. These orgs are running on empty right now. They're running on fumes. We know this because their parking lots are empty, their course rooms are empty, their auditing rooms are empty. And churches of Scientology are service organizations. They are meant to be businesses that operate on inflow, money coming in from delivering services. And Miscavige has changed that over to a faith-based Mormon model, which is more in the direction of tithing and giving money for status. And churches of Scientology don't really run that way. They're not built to run that way, and so they struggle. And then they struggle to have staff. They struggle to do their functions that they're built to do because Miscavige isn't running Scientology in such a way that he wants those services being delivered. He doesn't really get big course rooms and lots of book sales and lots of auditing happening when he emphasizes IAS and ideal org donations. And somehow either Miscavige knows this or he doesn't know it. I don't really know. Maybe he knows this, maybe he doesn't. But the fact of the matter is that when you build organizations on a model of service and delivery and then don't service and deliver, you're going to struggle. And that's what all the churches of Scientology over the world are doing right now. And Miscavige doesn't like people, so it makes sense that he doesn't really want to service them or deliver or make them better people, because he doesn't personally have any investment in it, and he doesn't really see it as a valuable and necessary product. Not only from a moral place, but from a purely financial place. He knows he doesn't have to do that in order to make money. He can do the Mormon model and just sell faith, right? Do the church model, just sell faith. Right? Give me money and I'll make the world a better place. Okay, Dave, here you go, says Tom Cummins, right? Give me money and I'll make the world a better place. Here you go, says Trish Duggan. And that's all Miscavige has to do now, right? So the orgs are really non sequitur to the way Miscavige is running Scientology. And that's why eventually those orgs are only going to be useful. In fact, right now, those orgs are only useful to Miscavige for two things. One, flowing people through the services there so they can go to Flag and get really hit on for the big money. And two, extension units, sales offices, remote sales offices for the Sea Org and for the IAS. That's what Class 5 orgs are good for in David Miscavige's model of running Scientology. That's my take on that whole picture. There you go. Love answering stuff like that. Because it's kind of fun to consider how fast it's breaking down, you know. Okay, Robotube. I know that Miscavige doesn't have a college education, but do you have any insight into if he is conventionally clever or just a cunning chancer who lucked out? Both. A lot of luck has accompanied Miscavige's rise and maintenance of power. A lot of luck, right? I mean, Miscavige has been lucky nobody's popped him in the mouth, to be honest. He's really lucky that nobody has actually just gone off on him and put him in his place already. That's one thing that he is truly, literally lucky to have, not experienced. He is clever enough, obviously, right? Sort of in a cunning, sort of honey badger way. Honey badgers don't give a shit. Neither does Miscavige, right? He's just going to do what he's going to do, and consequences, schmonsequences, doesn't matter. Let's see. There's what I want to say here in answer to this question is that there's a great deal more organic opportunism in the rise and maintenance of cult leaders than I think a lot of people realize. We assign an awful lot of premeditation and knowledge and skill and intelligence to what cult leaders do, when actually what we're really doing is analyzing what they do after the fact of them just opportunistically doing their coercive stuff, right? When they're beating on people or when they are engaged in a campaign of terror or gaslighting, it's because that's what their whim and whimsy and impulse drives them to do in the moment over and over and over again with certain individuals or people or groups of people. That's how they relate to people. That's how they act. That's how they control. That's how they dominate. But they don't do it because they read a book about how to do that. That's how they do it. Or they figure out that's how you do it. And as long as it works, right? Budafield, right? As long as it works for 20 years, I can keep these people on a leash, telling me everything about themselves and not telling anybody else what we're talking about or what we're doing when I'm having sex with you in this room very, very secretly, and nobody else in the group knows, right? This is what this Jaime guy got away with. For years and years, he got away with it, right? Just don't tell anybody else. He didn't even have a system of reporting or anything. He just had people not talking to each other. And as long as they kept the secret between him and them, there our little special secret relationship we're having, he was having sex with all these different people. But they weren't talking to each other. Until the day something slipped, and within a few weeks, this thing collapsed. Within a year, he didn't have any more followers. Pretty much, you know what I mean? And that was all just through whim and organically kind of rolling it out and crossing his fingers and hoping for the best and doing his best to set people at odds with each other and that kind of thing. But it's not like, this was this cleverly premeditated plan. It just rolled out that way. And you luck into the right people who stick with you and stick with you and stick with you because their needs keep them there, right? People who can see past what you're doing don't fall into your trap in the first place. So, they're just never there to be fooled. But the people who are there for reasons that keep them there, and that's that codependency. That it's a mutual glue kind of thing. Anyway, hope that all makes sense and answers the question. But again, let me know if I'm missing anything you wanted on that. Have you read Jesus and John Wayne? I highly recommend it. Well, okay. Jesus and John Wayne. Now I'm curious. Oh, there's a Wikipedia page about it. How white evangelicals corrupted the faith and fractured a nation. Ah. Oh, yes. Published in 2020. Oh, yeah, I should take a look at that. It's along the same lines of what we've been talking about. I'd love to know more about it. Cool. Thanks for the book recommendation. I will check that out. Noted. Hey, Alex. Welcome to the chat. All right, man. Xen asks, does the current president feel it's better to have other nations respect him or fear him? Is that a part of his narcissism? Is it effective? Oh, it's fear. You have to understand that respect and fear become the same thing at that level when you have a fundamental philosophy of might is right. When your mindset is that you're the big swinging dick and everybody else has to, get on their knees in front of you because you have all the power, and that is Trump's view in every room he's ever occupied, then you understand that respect and fear to that mind are the same thing. Right? They don't differentiate because they have no concept or ability to empathize. This is a person who literally cannot understand emotions that are happening in other people or with other people. There is simply no concept of that. So instead, what you have to have with such a personality are phrasing, like statements of loyalty and subservience, because they don't see or understand the emotional makeup of the people in front of them or what they really are feeling or thinking. They have to have these statements, and that's what satisfies their ego, right? That's why you have Trump's cabinet and Trump, and other foreign leaders who deal with Trump have to obsequiously, venerate and praise him and talk over and over to him about how amazing and wonderful and magnanimous and generous and and awesome he is, right? What he really wants to hear is how incredibly powerful he is and how other people have no choice but to, fall down before him and prostrate themselves because of his inherent greatness. He needs this from other people because he has no ability to generate that within himself. He has no sense of self that satisfies his identity, right? Because his identity is so pea-sized. It's tiny. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. It's very, very sad and tragic in any human being, but after a while, it's not sad and tragic. It's just gross and disgusting because of their inability to empathize, combined with unlimited power and wealth and resources, and you have a monster. You have somebody who who has no ability to get along with or empathize with other people or even understand them at a human level. This is the majority of people who are operating in the leadership class of our world. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I've been saying for years, right? And so this class of people rule through an attitude and a moral foundation of might is right. If I have the power, I'm right. By definition, that's what makes me right. Objective facts, science, the natural world, your reasoning, all of those things don't matter and are not the source of truth. My power is. Because I have power, I can make you or anybody do things or say things or be things that I want them to be or do or say. Is that not truth? Is that not all the truth that you ever need to have or know? Yes, of course it is. And if you don't agree with me, I got a guy back here with a gun. Oh, now you agree with me. See? Isn't that easy? That's it. That's the world that we live in now, and those are the people who are running it. I don't think I've ever put it that way. But that's what's going on in their head. It's as inhuman, it's as close to inhuman as you can get and still be in a human body. Right? This idea that my force and power is what makes me right. And if you don't like it, I will literally kill you, and you don't get to exist anymore in my world. And is this not great? And am I not magnanimous and generous to allow you to live in my world? That's who rules the United States right now. And that flavor of leader is what populations in this world are voting into office right now. We have a wave of this. And it's a contagion. It's a virus kind of thing at a social level. It's like a social contagion. And it's bad. So that's how I kind of see that. It's horrible, but that's how I see it. Okay, moving on. Young Matador, do you have any favorite foods or routines during Thanksgiving or Christmas season? Hey, very different answer, very different question. Thank you for this one. Because I do. Yeah, we've set up a whole thing here now where for Thanksgiving I'm the cook now. I took over basically for the family, and because I thought it could have been better. I thought we could have been doing better for our yearly feast. So I convinced everybody that I should cook the turkey and the mashed potatoes and stuff, and I do that here. And I have a whole brining process that I do where I get the turkey 4 days before and get it all thawed and get it all nicely brined. I got a great big pot that I can brine it in and get all the sauces and spices and everything in there and do a good deal with that. And then we have a nice family Thanksgiving here. And for Christmas, we spend that with Mel's family, and we do a whole thing, go over there first thing in the morning, and we got the tree and all the stuff. So, we just do the usual sort of typical family stuff. And I got to tell you guys, just as a former Scientologist who grew up for decades not having any of that shit. And in fact, I'm going to tell you straight, I think some of you guys might remember, if you've been watching me for a while, that Christmas used to be a nothing to me, an absolute nothing. Christmas meant nothing to me. As a Sea Org member, Christmas was beaten out of me. And now it's finally kind of back. And it kind of sucks with the state of the economy and everything, but I mean the spirit, the feelings, the emotion, the community, the family of it, it's back for me. And it really felt special this year. like in a really warm place in my heart kind of way. Like when the day the family left and we were back to just Mel and me at home here, and it was just, God, that was so nice. That was really nice. I really enjoyed that. It wasn't this contentious family thing, you know. It really went really smooth, and I just really loved that. So I'm looking forward to Christmas. And yes, I made mashed potatoes. Okay. Moving on. Ex-Scion. All right, let's go back to politics for a minute. Has Trump forever broken the mold of what it was to be the U.S. president? No, he doesn't have to have, right? We're faced with an authoritarian decline right now, but we can turn it around if we wanted to and if we really got serious about it. But I don't know if we're going to, but we could, right? It could change. One bad apple, one bad leader, whatever, doesn't have to spoil the entire system. We've got a longer term problem, of course. Trump hasn't forever broken the mold. We've had really a series of pretty piss poor presidents since Nixon, really, who have let us down over and over and over again, and it's pretty sad. Hindsight's the worst critic, and probably an unfair one in terms of the judging the actions and behavior of every one of the presidents since Nixon. Maybe I'm painting with too broad a brush. I probably am, but we've had democratic decline occurring through a series of really catastrophic decisions, blunders, and circumstances that are not any one person's fault, but collectively we can look to certain classes of people and certain types of decisions that were made that drove us to this place. And they were the kind of decision making that people like Donald Trump would be in favor of and would have made. Decisions to engorge the upper class at the expenses of the lower class, things like that, right? People who should have known better made decisions that, really set us on a course of true economic disparity and disaster. And so when you drive populations in that direction, they respond classically, historically, by finding and raising up strong men who are going to take over and overthrow the existing failing system, and bring freedom and prosperity to everybody, right? This is what populism and a populist platform is all about, and that's how Donald Trump got into the White House. He was even surprised it happened, because he was just doing it, on a lark, practically on a bet. He didn't want to be president. He never wanted to be president, right? But then suddenly he became that, and everybody was calling him that, and then he had to be that. And Trump's idea of what a president is a king. It's somebody that everybody has to listen to, and nobody else has anything else to say about it, and he holds all the power. That's the only way a simpleton like him understands power. He doesn't understand the concept any other way. So his utilization of power is to break every regulation and sort of guide rail on the road. It's like, here's your road and here's how your power is distributed. And he's like, no, I'm going to take a nuclear bomb to all of that because my power goes wherever I want it, however I want it, whenever I want it, and no one has anything at all to say about it. And the problem is not that the president, Trump, has broken the mold of what it is to be a U.S. president, it's that the things in our Constitution which were designed to stop that from happening or stop that from becoming a nuclear explosion that blows the whole thing up, the things that were designed to stop that failed, committed treason. Our Supreme Court, Speaker of the House, Congress, right? The people who run those operations committed treason and pissed all over our Constitution and refused to uphold their oaths of office to restrict the power, the unlimited power of the executive branch. So it wasn't Trump that broke the mold. It was the entire mold that broke the mold. It was all three branches simultaneously committing treason and pissing on our Constitution that has destroyed the framework of our government. If people who believe in those structures and in what our Constitution says can be gotten back into power, they have a chance of reconstructing this. The chances of that happening are very, very slim right now. This is why I've been saying for a year, if you're not organizing with other people in your area to get this kind of activity happening, to put people up who understand the things I'm saying right now and understand them at a structural level, like that this is the reason this whole thing's falling apart, is it's because we're throwing acid all over this, and we've got to rebuild this, and we rebuild trust in these systems. If the approach is something different from that, it's off. This is why Gavin Newsom is not going to be the solution, right? Because corporate-centered, what do they call it? Technocratic centrism ain't the solution for this, and neither is anti-Trumpism, right? Just saying Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is bad, that's not going to fix anything. Because the problem is not Trump. The problem is all three of the systems failed us. The checks and balances did not check and balance. And all three areas must be rehabilitated and repaired in our system, and we must rebuild public trust in those systems. And we're probably past the point of no return. But it would be, but if we were going to fix it, that would be how we would do so. Indeed. All right. So that's my breakdown on that, right? You've heard me say it before in different ways, different approaches, whatever, but that's kind of where things are standing right now, right? I'm not particularly even like now at the point of, I'm very sad about this, that's for sure. I'm very, very, very not okay with it. I'm very, very, very much pushing back against all of it, right? I'm never going to agree to authoritarianism or, this cult mentality that dominates so much of our public discourse is just so much ridiculousness. So I'm not, I don't want to contribute to all that or make it worse or something like that. But I'm just trying to clarify the situation, and I hope that my answers do so, because that's how I think about things. And there you go. All right, so that is the end of our question. Oop, no, get off of there. Stop that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So, yeah, we might, Alex, we might want to actually just kind of fold ourselves back into the British Empire. How about that? Is King Charles ready for us? We really could have a king. Hey, there's an idea. Wow, we could have a real king. All right, I think I'm going to start wrapping up here, unless you guys have some other questions you want to throw my way. Let's see. This is the final week of my book editing project. I should be hearing back from my editors this next week with all the final feedback on it, so I can sort of incorporate or encapsulate or think about or do whatever I'm going to do with the edits that I get back, so I can finalize this thing and get a manuscript put together that is publishable. So that'll be the task over the next few weeks. I've got a title settled, and I now need to come up with some cover art and stuff for it as well. So you guys are getting the blow by blow on this as I go. And on that happy note, I hope you guys had an awesome Thanksgiving. I hope you guys are gearing up for a decent Christmas despite all the travails of our times. I really encourage community, connection. Just make it happen. I think it'd be good for all of us to do that. And I see one last question coming in here from ex-Science, so let's go ahead and throw it on the screen. Yeah, kings aren't all that bad. Have you ever wanted to be in a movie? Which one, which role? Oh my God, I would love to be in a movie. I'm probably a horrible actor. I have no skill set connected with that at all. So I don't know if I'd be any good or not in terms of passing a screen test. I really, truly have no idea what the skill set is involved with any of that stuff. I know all about acting theory in an odd way because I've been sort of movie adjacent for all my life. I've paid attention to sort of the methods and the theory of making movies. You know, it's really a great big project management thing. But as far as the acting part of it, the art of acting, you know, you get. I don't know. I don't know how to think about myself in that in that situation, but I could never ever. I could see myself being in a comedy, believe it or not, even though I'm really not a very funny person. I could see myself being in a comedy, or I could see myself doing some kind of, you know, regular, ordinary kind of role or semi-dramatic role or something. I could not see anything even remotely connected to any kind of action genre or anything even remotely like any of that. Don't see myself doing anything like that. So, yeah. But something like The Office or something, I could probably slot into something like that. All right. Good. Okay, so there we go. So that's our show for this week, guys. Thanks for coming around and listening to me prattle on here at a Mad Rate. I really do appreciate your support, viewership, and all of that. Like, share, you know, get my videos around if you guys like what I have to say here. I hope it's interesting and informative. That's the goal every week. All right. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you guys soon. Okay. Bye-bye.